Hey guys, today I've got the Glute Ham developer out and I'm going to show you how to correctly perform a glute ham raise as an accessory exercise for powerlifting. Firstly, why we do the glute ham raise. The glute ham raise is a good exercise as it strengthens our hamstrings. It strengthens our hamstring in a really specific way. If you've studied anything about strength training, you'll know that strength is a highly specific trait. That is, we adapt in a really specific way to the stresses that are imposed on our muscular system. So, for example, a really good hamstring exercise that I've preached about before on my YouTube channel is the RDL, or Romanian deadlift. The difference between an RDL or any kind of stiff leg deadlift variation compared to a glute ham raise is that they strengthen the hamstring in different positions. You can picture in an RDL position, your hamstrings are being strengthened through a stretched position. Because our knees are straight and we're bending over at our hips, our hamstrings get stretched because our hamstrings are a bi-articular muscle. They cross both our knee and our hip. So our hamstrings get stretched and we're strengthening the hamstring at length. That's in a stark contrast to what's going to happen in a glute ham raise, where the top position of our glute ham raise is going to be one where our knees are flexed and our hips are in full extension. So the hamstrings are at their most shortened position. So we're strengthening the hamstrings at the opposite end of the spectrum in a position that we wouldn't otherwise be able to achieve through a typical stiff-legged deadlift variation like the RDL. Now, this isn't exactly a position that you're going to really encounter very much when you're doing a deadlift per se, but this exercise and other general types of exercises are more about building the athlete as a whole and building your general muscular system, rather than saying, oh, you've got X particular weakness, so let's target it with glute ham raise. That's not the right rationale. Rather, we're just doing the glute ham raise as a general posterior chain hamstring building exercise. Okay, so how do we exactly perform a glute ham raise? First, you need a glute ham developer or a similar machine. Now, this exercise is going to vary depending on what type of machine you have. Some are going to have different types of padding, some are going to have different types of foot rest, some are going to be lower to the ground, a whole bunch of variations, but the actual movement is relatively similar. Some machines will be harder to operate, like it'll feel harder in some machines, whereas some will feel easier to do. So depending on what you've got access to will depend on the difficulty that you find this, as it is like a bodyweight exercise. All right, first thing we need to do is we need to set up this foot holder. And generally the rule is the closer this is to the knee pad, the harder it's going to be. And the further back it is, the easier it's going to be. So for example, if this was here, that'd be really difficult for me. I'd find that really difficult. Whereas being back here, that's actually a little bit more comfortable for me. And what's going to happen is I'm going to mount the machine so that my knees sit in this part of the padding. If anything, my kneecaps actually sit below this. So my kneecaps are going to hang below this. And you're going to see what that looks like. So my knees aren't going to be on top. They're actually going to kind of sit below. And you might feel like you're going to slide and fall through, but I promise you won't. If you push your quads into this pad, you'll actually stick. And you'll notice that my feet are pressing against this back foot plate. That's really important as well. Okay, now the starting position is up here. And what you'll notice is that my whole torso is in full extension. My back is straight, my hips are through. My bum's not back here, my bum's forward. So keep your hips forward the whole time. And what you'll notice is that my knees are in flexion, which means they're bent. So you'll see that my knees are bent. And as I go lowering myself into position, my body doesn't move, it doesn't change angle. What happens is my knees simply straighten. Okay, so as I lower into position, you'll notice my knees are straightening. And I only come to here. I only get as low as I'm able to by straightening my legs. If I let my body lower any further, that's no longer extending my knee. That's not the objective of the exercise. It's just to here. And from here, I'm going to use the strength of my hamstrings to curl at my hamstrings, at my knees, like this. So my knees straighten, and I bend at the knees to pull myself up. One more. Again, knees straighten, knees bend. Okay, so as I've explained, you'll notice that all the action is occurring at the knees. This differs heavily from a back extension where our knees stay static the entire time and it's our back or it's our torso that's moving. So in a back extension, we're mainly targeting spinal erectors and glutes. So what that looks like is this. You'll notice my knees stay in extension and it's my back that lifts. It's my back. And my knees aren't bending. So that's really different to glute ham raise. The back extension and glute ham raise, both great exercises, but they're just different. If you're trying to strengthen your hamstrings, then the glute ham raise, as I showed previously, is the correct execution, where your knees are the ones that are flexing and extending the entire time. Now the glute ham raise is actually quite a difficult exercise, and I generally recommend that you do it with a slow eccentric, because that's kind of what you're trying to target. You're trying to target especially eccentric strength, right? Strengthening your hamstrings as they lengthen. If it's too hard for you to do just with your body weight, we can do it assisted. So what I do is I grab a monster band. So I think this is a 41-inch band. We wrap this around the back of it, as so. And what we can do is wrap this over one shoulder. So you climb into this, and you can hold this over one shoulder. And you can imagine that as I go down, the tension in the band is going to assist me and help me pull me back up, right? So it looks like this. Same thing. All right, torso is straight, slowly lower ourselves into position. Now the band is helping me, much easier to come through. So this is a really good way to progress into a body weight glute ham raise, all the way up. One more. Cool. Alternatively, if you actually find the glute ham raise quite easy, if you're doing sets of 15 or 20 reps with body weight and it's not overly challenging, you can make it harder. We've got a dumbbell here, a weighted dumbbell with a band, the same band that's wrapped around the dumbbell. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this band, wrap it around our head, and this is going to provide extra resistance during the movement. Now, I prefer a band as added resistance as opposed to a weight, because as you get towards the top of the glute ham raise, where your hamstrings are like working the hardest, that's when the band provides the most resistance. So it kind of feels a little bit more natural, as opposed to a weight where once you've initiated the movement, you've got a bit of momentum and it actually doesn't feel that hard as you get towards the top, as well as the closer you get to the top, the shorter the lever arm between the weight and your knee joint. So again, it just gets easier. So I much prefer a band. Now, as a note, what makes this really hard is that we need to, as much as we can, maintain like lumbar flexion or posterior pelvic tilt throughout the entire exercise. That means we don't want to be arching our back. We don't want to be doing this action where we're in lumbar extension and lifting our body like this. Instead, we want to be here where all this is closed. So we want to close down this. It helps to round our shoulders and round our upper back, and that really isolates the hamstrings. If you're really disciplined and really strict at having this flexed torso position, so flexed lumbar, flexed upper back, pronated, and internally rotated shoulders, it's actually a really, really hard exercise, and even I struggle to do so correctly with any resistance. Body weight is actually quite challenging for me. So that's a little bit more advanced, and it's a bit more to get into. I have made previous videos about pelvic position in the past. I might put some links to those types of videos in the description below. But just be mindful that we're not doing the exercise in this extended, arched position. Instead, we want to be compressed and posteriorly tilted, lumbar flexed as we're doing the exercise, and that's really going to isolate our hamstrings. Now, as an alternative, if you don't have access to a glute ham developer or a glute ham raise machine, you can perform Nordic curls. Now, you might have seen people in the past perform Nordic curls like unassisted, and you kind of get a quarter of the way down, but you simply just don't have the hamstring strength to control it, and then you just fall, push yourself up and try to go again. Not a really big fan of that, because you're not really strengthening your hamstring through that range of motion. You're not actually getting much work done. So I prefer to do them as an assisted Nordic hamstring curl. So all you need to do is have same thing, like a nice big band wrapped around a power rack or some overhead, I've wrapped it around here on a pull-up bar, and you need a partner, and they're going to hold your ankles down as you lower into position. So it kind of looks like this. You take the band, you're going to hold this at your chin. You've got someone holding your ankles down really firmly, and it's exactly the same technical points as earlier. Ribs tucked down, posterior pelvic tilted. Hamstrings are extending as you come down, and then from here, it's hamstring strength to pull yourself up. Okay, I'll go again, one more time. Quite challenging to do. So that's an alternative if you don't have a glute ham raise. Okay, so that's a glute ham raise. If you've got any questions about how to perform it correctly or how to incorporate it in your training program, I'm happy to answer and field questions in the comment section below. If you've got any ideas for future videos or any requests, again, just leave a comment and I'll happily take those on. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Should I say what's going on, or?
No one gives a fuck.
Today I've got the glute ham raise out. No, that's not how I'm going to do it. Hey guys, we've got the glute ham raise. Start again. Firstly, why a glute ham raise is a good exercise? Well, I missed that again. I know what I'm doing. Okay, come on. Ready, steady, spaghetti. Extension and hip extension. Okay. Whereas just a quick demo to start. Oh fuck, I'm gonna start this again. I fucked this up.